Hello trainers, and welcome to the making of the thumbnail for Ninetales. This was one of our date night safe for work episodes. This one, I think, is the... oh, how would I phrase this? The one that took up the most screen to do because of all the tails. There's not really too much technique. I do try a couple new things that I'm honestly typically pretty minimal on, or some might say lazy about. For this one, I started with the body outline. I typically start with the face, but there's not too much face to start with, and I really needed to get all of the swoops in order so I can be very aware of the layers going on. So starting with all the full head of head swoops, and then going down to the face and doing the ruffles. I did anthropomorphize them a little bit and gave them the shoulders, but I didn't feel the need to give them the signature bra because I feel like the chest floof covers a good amount of it. And then going into all the 9 tails, I did do my best to make sure there were 9 tails. And of course that made a big, full, voluptuous background. There's only the teeniest, tiniest glimpses of background in there, which I do color just because, you know, they're there. I will acknowledge them. But I wanted to still keep the curve wherever it would make sense, because even if I feel like it takes up a grand amount of the screen, I still want the flow and follow through of the body parts to make sense. Finally doing the eyes. Funnily enough, the Ninetales eyes are pretty similar already to my Ditto OC eyes. They're just a little more curved out, whereas my Ditto is typically a bit rounder. But it translated basically the same, but with a different eye color. And then doing some fine lines, because I typically do the outline at a size 2, and then the finer lines I did at a size 1. And then there we go, we just block out everything to be pink. But anything that's like a lot more of a finer line or accent or detail, kind of similar to the inner ear, which I'm going to be starting to do a gradient shading on. A lot more shading on this one than I typically do. I'm trying to be better about it. But if it's a finer accent, I try to make it thinner than the thick outlines to vary it up a bit so it doesn't all translate to the same thickness, and you can... also it gives it a bit more of a delicate feel. So the primary thing that's going to help distinct all the fluff are the shadows and the shine. I typically wouldn't do shadows, mainly to keep it simpler on myself. With my neurodivergence, I'm very obsessive with details, and I can get very carried away very easily, and I'm trying to keep these as simple as possible. One, because they're very small. These are mainly used for affinity, because the thumbnails that scroll out are typically very small, so I don't want to do too many details, drive myself mad, waste my own time for something that's never going to be seen truly. Or also, it's not the point, because the point primarily is for my audio. But, you know, I have been getting faster. This one took me about 50 minutes to do, because before they would take me like well past the hour mark to do, but with the constant practice I have been getting faster, so it's like, well, okay, I can start really pushing myself and trying these extra details to really help it stand out, since the thumbnail is what's somewhat advertising the audio. So we have the deeper shadows between each of the tails to really separate them out. I use the line tool, and then sometimes I will feather it with the eraser tool, so it's not quite so harsh, so it doesn't have a terribly plastic feel to it, and I feel the texture is a lot more appealing. I have them on separate layers so that I can just block those out. Yeah, I cheat a lot, honestly, because I draw with mousepad and keyboard, so I'm not using a drawing tablet, a Wacom tablet, nothing like that. This is all done with mouse, so I use cheats like the line tools for my outlines and the shadows, and then I'll feather cut it down with the eraser tool at a low transparency. And I like the effect, honestly. Oh, I hear my cat meowing at the door. So yeah, I was honestly debating putting commentary over this episode because it's, again, a lot of straightforwardness of just the shading, and then eventually I'll get the shine going, and my cat has broken into the office. Hello. You gonna make this interesting? You know all about fluff, don't you? So now I'm adding that Ditto shine because it is still my slime girl. So big shines for big big distinction. Good. So he pushed his way into the office, and now he's trapped himself in the office and is yelling at me about it. This is all staying in. I'm gonna let them know what a goofus you are. You can figure out the door. Yeah, going on every tube of fur, and oh goodness. Okay, I'll let him out. You're a goof. Our special cat episode. Yeah, this is all staying in because I really don't have too much to commentate about this one, because it's just a lot of doing the same thing over and over with each tail. I gave it. I tried a little bit of the split shine, because especially on things like vinyl or pleather leggings, I've noticed that that's a bit more of a feature to them, and with how big and long the tails are, I figured this was a good opportunity to experiment with that patterning of shine. I didn't go into the fine hairs though, because again, I'm trying to keep it fairly simple. I feel like I could have done a little more shadowing for the tails just because they're so thick. Every episode I feel like I could have done something a little more, which is exactly my point, which with trying to keep these as simple as I can, otherwise I go down a rabbit hole. It's also why I typically try to do 2 thumbnails a night, and that way it kind of puts a little more pressure on myself. So yeah, using the original orange to do those tiny nubbins of color. And since it's a date night, I use the heart to be the backdrop for the date number. Yeah, just squish that right in. And then getting the DDD logo, which will go over top, kind of like a magazine cover. I'm trying to remember how to rotate it. There we go, I got it. Sometimes I just forget where little things go. But I think that lined up pretty good. So, yep, that is Ninetales for the date night number 5. You can have access to those at the $1 tier on my Patreon and Subscribestar. Otherwise, I have a whole catalog of other episodes, full length, because the public episodes are typically shortened. If you want the full length versions, again, go to my Patreon or Subscribestar. And I will see you for the next catch. Bye-bye.